He edits these videos for me and very well. Hey. So in that case, I would say he is a social media. Oh my God, it's like a fucking zoo in here. If you are considering hiring a VA, you have come to the right place. Now, there's some questions you should be asking before you hire and make your decision. And this assessment test will help you determine if the VA is going to be a good fit for you and your business. Now, before we jump into the juice of this one, be sure to like and subscribe to my channel for all things VA scaling, team building, all that good juicy stuff. Now, I scaled my business to healthy 5-figure months with the help of virtual professionals. We screen and recruit hundreds of VAs every single week, so I definitely know a thing or two about the VA world, the questions to ask, the assessments to look out for, and just as an overall, what to be aware of when you're going through this process. And I want to share some of that juicy behind the scenes stuff with you in this video. It's going to be a good one. So virtual assistant, VA, is quite a broad term. And when people think VA, they often think generalist, right? Like admin, organizational staff, etc. But contrary to popular belief, most VAs, in my experience anyway, actually have a specialty. Example is I have a social media manager who is great at putting my content together, multi-purposing content and putting it out into the world, right? He even writes the captions, he does the graphics and whatnot. Now, I would say that one of his expertise as well is video editing. He edits these videos for me. So he is a social media specialist, but he also has an expertise in video editing, which works great because I am doing YouTube videos quite a lot, and that's one of the things that I require. So rather than go and have to hire a video editor who specializes in that, I've got a social media specialist with an expertise in video editing. So when you're putting a virtual assistant assessment test, perhaps it's an intake form, you're getting people to fill out before you shortlist, one of the things to ask is, do they have an expertise? It might be bookkeeping, they might have a background in sales, they might have a background in design, accounting, you never know. So put the question out there. I mean, it's easy enough to go through and read a CV or a resume, right? And you can see that what they've done here, but I find these questions really good in intake forms and also when you're doing interviews and sitting down face to face and getting to know one another. Another question I love to ask is, how did you become a VA? Now, there's often a really interesting backstory to this, and not only does it give you a little bit of insight into their life and how they became to where they are now to now meeting you, it's also a bit of an icebreaker. Like, it helps you guys to be able to build up rapport. You're not just looking at the hard and the soft skills, like you're actually showing a bit of an interest in their life and what they've done. And this is where I feel you can really have connections with people as well. If you've gone through interview processes, you will know that there's some people that you just don't vibe with, and there's other people that do. And your intuition knows, and your body knows, that when there's a person there and you're vibing on that same frequency, the chances are they're going to do very well working in your team as opposed to the other person who might have all the skills but doesn't vibe with you, okay? And you can get to that vibey type space by showing interest in the other person, okay? Much like when we're doing sales calls or having conversations with clients, you know, it's not all about you. Like, you can learn so much through other people. So showing an interest to them by asking them where they come from and what they do is really going to open up a door for you guys to be able to have that connection point there as well. Third question, this is pretty important. So how long have you been a virtual assistant? I think that's a really important question because it might be all bells and whistles in the portfolio and talking and on the CV, but hey, what it comes down to, when it comes down to crunch time, how long have you been a virtual assistant? Because if you just, like, perhaps if you're on a cheaper budget, you might get a beginner who's been in the space for 1 to 2 years, but just know that the speed in which they work and the quality in which they work isn't going to be as high as someone who's been in the space for 3 to 5 years. Okay, they're kind of like mid-range. They've been around a little bit more. They're going to be more comfortable coming to you with ideas, thinking outside the box a little bit more. Okay, offering up innovations. Okay, as opposed to a beginner. yeah? But you're gonna pay a little bit more for this mid-range person. And then you've got pro, okay? This is how we kind of do our pricing in my company. You've got someone who's a pro, I would say 6, 7+ years experience in the industry, okay? They're gonna be outcome focused. You tell them what you want, they go out, they do the thing, they bring you the results. Having an understanding of how long they've been a virtual assistant as well gives you an understanding of their experience. It's worth also mentioning here that you wanna find out, they might say, oh, I've been a VA for 5 years, but maybe they've only been doing 5 hours a week here and there, and it hasn't been consistent. So it's like, okay, cool. So you've been a VA for 5 years. Has that been full-time work the whole time? Or has there been blocks in between? Or how does that look? Just like probe a little bit more there, because you can find it, like I said, you can give a big number and that sounds all great, but when you do a little bit more probing, you get more of an accurate representation of how long they've actually been a VA for, and therefore how much experience they have as well. And we know how invaluable experience is when you're hiring new people, because it means less ironing out of the wrinkles, okay? So you can get them trained up easier, move them into the positions a lot quicker and more efficiently as well. So that experience question is a really, really cracker of a question. You can ask them which tools they like to use, or which tools or softwares they're experienced in as well. Obviously, digital businesses are using all sorts of different softwares. We have Kajabi, Samcart, ActiveCampaign, we've got MailChimp, everything under the sun, ClickFunnels. There are so many different softwares out there, and so asking them which ones they prefer to use or which ones they are experienced in can give you a bit of an idea about how you can integrate them into your business as well, and get you to start thinking as well, okay, I really like this person, but they don't know much about Samcart, which I need them to know. So in that case, I'm gonna have to get them trained up in Samcart. So that's a consideration there for you, okay? Putting a few weeks aside of getting them, there's gonna be a learning curve there, okay? You can start thinking forward in terms of timelines, deadlines, budgets, all of that. And here it's also worth talking about time tracking or activity tracking. Have they used, if they're working remotely, which likely they are, have they used some sort of a time tracker or activity tracker? I would highly, highly recommend Hubstaff. I've been using Hubstaff for the last couple of years, and it's been nothing short of amazing for me. I will leave a link below for that, guys, if you would like to get onto that one there. Another great question here is, what security measures do you use? Now, this one doesn't get talked about very often. I think a lot of people find it boring and unnecessary, but it's actually so important. I just had someone say to me the other day who is looking to get on board with us. They asked about our security measures, okay, because they were going through this previous company, and in that company they ended up getting hacked. They got through to all their proprietary and confidential documentation, and it ended up being a complete and utter shit show. Basically, they had to get rid of all their staff, and by the way, a high turnover of staff is very, very expensive. So this person has essentially just lost their whole entire team because of security issues and lack of security measures. So you want to be making sure that the candidates that you're interviewing and asking questions, do they have malware and security measures set up on their PCs or wherever they're working from? Up-to-date antiviral softwares. Are they familiar with two-factor authentication? Are they using that on crucial apps? Are they also only using private Wi-Fi connections? Because that's really, really important. That's where a lot of hacks happen. If they're using G Suite, are they actually going through and following the security measures within G Suite as well? Because there's monthly cleanups that you can do there. You can schedule those, I believe. So that's also something worth looking into if you're working with a team through G Suite. My advice here is not to overlook the security measures. If you're not sure what part of the operations and the delivery in your business that you can be delegating, I will leave a link below to our revamped delegation cheat sheet. It's helped hundreds of entrepreneurs, small businesses, coaches, and consultants. Go check that out. There's also a bit more of a deep dive here on hiring a virtual assistant, some steps and guide there for you. Okay, another question is, what hours do they work? Okay, so when you're having this interview question, you're just sort of gauging what their availability is like. Do they prefer night times, afternoons? Do they have other clients? So asking what hours they prefer to work is a really important question as well. I mean, the chances that one of the reasons they're a virtual assistant is because they love the flexibility. Okay, it's a very flexible role. So just kind of gauging that. Like, are you looking for shift work, like certain times that they need to be available. You need to ascertain that before you go and hire someone, and then you realize that the schedules are like a mismatch. That's happened to me before. So you want to make sure that the schedule actually aligns as well. This probably isn't something that gets asked very often, but it's how do you like to communicate? Some people don't like video. They like short, sharp, and sweet messages. Some people like to dive a little bit deeper and have the video on and the full experience, okay? So I think it's worth also diving in a little bit deeper with yourself and how do you prefer to communicate? And then is someone open to communicate to you in that way? So you might want an in-depth summary and a number of touch points, but your VA is a type of person who likes a bit more flexibility and perhaps doesn't like to be micromanaged and likes to do things within flexibility. So I've always said to my team members I'm hiring directly that I'm not a micromanager. I don't like to constantly have to be following up with you. I prefer if you can give me updates, like if I've delegated something, I'd like to have an updates along the way without me having to go out of my way and ask, or God forbid I delegate something and then I forget about it and then you forget about it and nothing gets done about it. Okay, so I'm very, very upfront with I don't like to micromanage, I don't like to chase, I don't like to follow. So basically I'm handing over ownership of the role to them, that when something is said and agreed upon, we are on the same page and that's your responsibility now. Sure, my finger is still on the pulse there and we can, catch up and talk about it in meetings, but I just make it very, very clear that I don't want to be micromanaging them. Unless there needs to be some intervention or my input is required, for sure, I'll jump in, I'll support where I need to. But with the day-to-day stuff, I don't need to know everything. I'm not interested in knowing everything either. I know my capacity, okay? And so I communicate that with my team so they know my style of communication as well. Now, a couple of other questions would be, how do you prioritize your work? That's going to give you an understanding of their organizational skills. Do they go straight to their email first in the morning, or do they look at the calendar? Okay, it might seem really simple, but I would most certainly say you need to look at the calendar first, because what if there's a meeting in the morning but you've been stuck in your email inbox for 2 hours? Let's face it, you don't spend 5 minutes in the inbox, okay? You read something, you end up going on these tangents and replying to that and talking to this client. So, simple question. How do you prioritize yourself? This one always yields a variety of replies, but asking them why they want the position in the first place. What's like the bigger picture here? What's the why? Are they doing it for their family, for themselves, to advance their career? Okay, you can start to really pick up like the behind the scenes stuff as well when you dig a little bit deeper and ask these open-ended questions. And you're also beginning to understand, is it just about the income for them, or is there, income is great and money on the table and security in that, but do they have an invested interest and curiosity in your business as well? Because I'm going to be leaning towards that person that has that. If I get someone who's like, oh yeah, I just need some extra money, as opposed to someone who's like, if it's a social media specialist position, I just can't get enough of it. I love graphic design and I really want to improve my skills. I'm going with that person, hands down. Last but not least, there is a million questions that you can ask when doing interviews. These are some of the pivotal and most impactful questions that I have found throughout an interview process. And last but not least, I think a scenario question is really good as well. So obviously it's going to depend on the role that you're hiring for and who the interviewee is, okay? But let's just say it's a web development role. Giving them a scenario. So I've got this website, this many pages, this is what needs to be done. How long would that take you? Okay, I've asked that questions in interviews before with various different web developers. One person says 5 hours, one person says 5 weeks. So that's going to give me, I'm like, okay, cool. Why is this like taking 5 weeks for this person? And this dude says he can do it in 5 hours. And so I'm like, it just gets you thinking a little bit about how people operate as well, the efficiency and the speed in which they work, okay? And another sort of scenario question would be, if it's not specific to a role, is let's just say it's like a general admin. Say, your client has given you an assignment and you're not quite sure how to do it. How would you handle that? Okay, so you're starting to understand a little bit how they problem solve. Do they have like yes man syndrome and they just like nod their head and say they can do everything? Okay, and it ends up costing you hundreds of dollars down the line because they haven't done a good job. You have to rehire someone to do the job that they said that they could do that they couldn't do, blah blah blah. It becomes a massive mess, right? Or do they say, actually, like I'd probably ask you and speak up and say, I'm not quite sure how to do this? Because that's the answer that you want to hear. You want to hear that they would reach out for help or use their voice and express the uncertainties. And that also comes down to you as a person, as a leader, as a boss, as a CEO, being open to mistakes. And this is something I bang on and on about with my team. If you're not sure about something, just let me know. If you're uneasy or uncomfortable, or if anything at all comes up for you, please, like, I welcome failures and I welcome mistakes. That's the best way to grow your business. You can't grow a business if everything's going fantastic on the front end, okay? If you're a hard-ass boss that's not approachable, to you it's probably gonna look fantastic, okay? But on the back end, it's probably gonna be a mess because your team doesn't feel comfortable in coming to you as well. So how you are as a person and your attitude plays a big part in that role as well. I'd love to know if you resonate with any of these interview questions and which ones you absolutely loved as well and intend on using. Let me know in the comments below and I will definitely reply there within the next 24 hours. If you're curious what other things that VAs can do for you within your business, there is a bunch of things that you're probably unaware of. So check out this video here on what VAs can do for you, and also my latest video here on Amazon VAs and what they can do for you in your business as well. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you sticking around and watching this video, and if you have had some value out of it, I would love it if you could like, subscribe, and maybe even share it with a friend, okay? It helps me to help more people like you and growing your business sustainably as well. So thank you. I'll see you on the next one.